Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about consensus. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, as a software engineering tech lead, are there times when you have to take a decision that is against the general consensus of the team? Yes. Yes, there is. Or yes, there are situations like that. Uh, it doesn't happen all that much usually because of something that I think is very important, and that is that I try to make a habit of only making decisions on things that are not really up for discussion, or things that are directives from the company, or things where there really isn't much in terms of there's no definitive way of doing something, and that's where it gets really tricky. That's where there's actually a lot of pressure on you as a tech lead. I feel at the very least. Well, it depends on, of course, how you want to how you lead your teams and so forth. My approach has always been that I try to lead by example. And the reason why I believe in that is not because I'm an egomaniac who thinks that I know everything, but rather that I truly believe that, and because this is how I was trained at the very least when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I did martial arts, and my martial arts teacher was in his own way, a very charismatic man, but he was very good at the art. Like, he could fight for real, and he could show, and like he taught us how to do the same thing. And the reason why I looked up to that man was because I saw that he knew what he was doing, and I understood the reasoning and logic. He didn't, it's not like you might have leaders today where like they are ill-equipped, they're underqualified, and a lot of them, they don't even know what you do for a living. And when they are supposed to lead, it can work, but it's also sort of silly in some cases. I make the argument that uh, that's what a real conqueror does. So like these big military leaders of our time are usually people who understand what it means to fight for your life, or understands what it means to be a soldier, or whatever you might be, right? They can relate. You can see that like they're not someone who just in theory sort of knows how to do things. And the thing that I truly don't believe in is that you can be a effective leader without knowing the people that you lead. You can absolutely produce results, but to get that really strong bond, strong connection with people, they have to understand that you know their plight, or like what it is to be them. And if we tie that back to me being a software tech lead or something like that, my people in my squad or in my team or so forth, they should feel as if I might not be the best at everything there, that's not the purpose, but they do understand that I can do the job. They can review my code, they can see that I understand them, I can give them meaningful feedback or thoughts or advice on things, etc., etc. And that is very important to me, and it's the reason why it becomes usually very simple to make decisions on behalf of the team, or create, or to actually sometimes tell people that I hear what you're saying, but the directive that we have is to go in this direction. Or maybe things like, it's a little bit unclear to how to go right now, but here is a very reasonable explanation from my side as to why we're making this decision, and this is the way we're gonna do it. I hope you're okay with that. And the reason why I can make like these sorts of very smooth transitions between, all right, I understand what you sort of want, but you have to understand as well that this is my perspective, or this is what the company is saying, and unfortunately in this scenario this is probably the way we're going to go with it. The reason why you usually don't get a lot of friction on that is because you know how to communicate with the people, because you are them. You could have switched seats with anybody in the team at any given moment, and they usually understand your reasoning when you are explaining things, because in software development, as you probably know, there are many ways of doing something. So if, for example, I say to my software team that, well, I had the discussion the other day as an example. My software team wanted to investigate generating REST clients based on open API specs. And I said, okay, I can give you, like, let's do this. Let's do an experiment. Let's see how well you can do it on one of these things. Now, I said, I don't personally think that this is a good investment. The reason being because right now we have like we have a few REST clients that are all OpenAPI specified, so we can do it. But the time you're going to invest in making this automated, like sort of nice generator is probably going to be higher than just writing it from scratch, and it's not going to cover the cases we have that's coming up where we have integrations that do not have a proper OpenAPI spec, unfortunately. Team felt it differently, said that yeah, but still it's sort of nice to have this other option, etc., etc. And I go, absolutely, yeah, I understand that it's nice to have. I just don't think that this is going to be sustainable. It's going to end with you creating like a most likely a half-baked solution that we're going to have to just live with, and so forth and so forth. But benefit of the doubt, this is low impact, or like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Go for it, try it. And so they did, and the thing that I said basically happened. They made it sort of work, but then the next situation that came up just a few days later, it did not work for, and it actually didn't work to the point where the dependency we had introduced caused problems for other code, which meant that okay, so now we need to figure out how can we make this fit into this other thing, etc., etc. And so more time and investment had to go into it. And I said, guys, this is starting to get a little bit like it's getting in the way of the work that we're trying to do. I understand that you want to sort of make things easier for everybody in the team and make this a little bit simpler, but the reality is that the time it takes for us to write one of these REST clients, because the thing that I had done basically was to create a very small little code framework that made manually writing the clients very, very cheap, because based on experience I know that in a high integration system it's almost impossible to use like the OpenAPI generators for all the cases, because some cases you work with companies, in many cases actually, they don't have a software team, they don't have OpenAPI specs, they don't even know what like REST is, and a lot of these companies, they use like FTP and other sorts of XML, like all these different types of solutions that, and in some cases they don't have an OpenAPI spec, where it becomes sort of impractical for you to like invest all this time in this generator. It's actually taking away time rather than, you know, writing it yourself. And so that's why I invested in a manual process that it was fairly cheap. It takes maybe, depending on how big the client is, maybe half an hour to write one, something like that, as opposed to, you know, a few seconds if you could generate it. And so I said, the reality is that this is what's gonna continue happening, so I'm not going to give you more time for this. And they understood, like there was no like hard feelings, because some of like at first the whole team was sort of behind the generator idea, and then when they started seeing that there was actually a lot of complications related to this, maybe one or two still wanted to continue trying to make it work, but most of the team sort of said that yeah, I've started to see that this is probably not going to work. So we could agree on that, okay, let's just focus on other things that are more value building. So what I want you to take away from this is that yes, there are times when a tech lead has to go against the consensus of the team, but it's usually not, I find, a big problem if you have reasonable people and they sort of understand that you understand them and that you make your case just as anybody would make their case. The worst thing you can do as a leader is to just say this is the way we're doing it because of reasons, and you don't people, software developers are usually very rational people. If you explain to them that the situation is what the situation is, they're usually very open to hearing you out. They're usually very understanding, because we are usually rational people. The times when I've had situations where that has not been the case, where I've had to basically tell a person that, yeah, this decision that they had made is not a good one. We're going to have to redo this because it doesn't fit into the larger perspective of the thing we want to do. Then we've had like a clash type of situation. And in those sorts of situations, you have to evaluate, and this is where it's really important that you know your stuff and that you're honest with yourself. Where I like to say that if I'm ever concerned that there is a discussion between myself and the team, or because sometimes the team is just another person, if I'm in the wrong, I try to fact check myself to make sure that I get some feedback from other people who are in similar sorts of experiences about what should be done next. And if I can't get the consensus, then I basically have to say I'm unfortunately forced to say that, well, this is the way we're going, and we might revisit your perspective later, but this is the decision, and I hope we can both live with that. It's very rare that you have to do that sort of thing. In some extreme cases, I've had philosophical differences with team members, and as I've explained to them, the problem you have now is that none of us can definitively prove that one is correct, like one of us is correct, but we have to make a decision. And since I don't believe in I don't believe that this is the right way forward, and you don't believe that my suggestion is the way forward, and we don't have any third options, we're going to have to go with the thing that is lowest risk. And then we sort of arrived at the conclusion that my suggestion was the right one. But the extremist case was where, like, I had someone who was actually confronting me in the team, and that is a very sad situation, because that means that someone has to go. And, well, you can imagine how that usually works out for the person who is not the tech lead. It's usually the case that if you can't get the team to go in the right direction, it's either you who has to move as the leader, or you're going to have to restructure some people in the team, because you can't have dissent based on the fact that you as the leader went in one direction and the team, or usually it's not the entire team, it's usually one or two people who wanted to go in a different direction. If that happens, one of you has to go. Have a great day.